We want to welcome those of you guys back inside the red zone here, inside of our studios, Flacco City Studios, proud and presented by him as well. We're doing something a little bit unconventional today. Solo act. My boy Moneybag Joe isn't here today, but this is week 16 of our great show. A lot of great things. Obviously, the debut of the college football playoff in the 12-team format, and of course, everything that we had in week 16, right? Behind the set, we got Mr. Flacco himself out here in the flesh.
What up, what up, what up, what up?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Gotta make it do what it do.
Gotta make it do what it do, man. Gotta make it do what it do. But yeah, go ahead, take away. What are we speaking about today? What type of topics are we talking about?
Well, the first thing that pops up into my head is, of course, we had a great weekend of college football. So I don't know what Michael Irvin has for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, but we got to talk about him on the sidelines and, how he gets all those emotions, and what contributes to those emotions. Because beating an undefeated team or a team that's only got one loss is, something to really celebrate. But Michael might be taking it too far.
Yeah, but before we get to Mr. University, of course, we want to thank all of our viewers and audience to please subscribe, like, and share, comment our content. And if you do live and support this show, we want to thank you and we want to continue growing it as well. And for the new audiences that have not, we want to hope you guys subscribe with us, because if you don't, I am obliged to think that you are a hater. Now, to get back to Mr. Michael Irvin himself, man, when you talk about that game, that was a great game to me. But on the sidelines, Mike, man, you're talking about, you know what I mean? You're talking about one of the most animated guys in college football when he used to play. That's why they call him the playmaker. They call him the playmaker for a reason. You know what I mean? Like with Michael Irvin, you know what he gonna do? Anytime he in the sidelines, anytime that he out there, he's trying to watch the Canes, he gonna support his Canes like it's his home Dallas Cowboys. You know what I mean? Now, with the whole getting the belt and then putting the what's it called? I think he put the jersey, right? The jersey of the Texas A&M thing, and then he started smacking it. I thought that was kind of funny to me, but I have no problem with it, because really, you look at that game, Miami, they looked like the physical team, and I was kind of glad that that game kind of played out the way that it did. I gave Miami a chance, because you got to think about it like this. A lot of noise they was hearing about the ACC don't belong here. Did Notre Dame even deserve to make it in? ACC didn't even deserve to have a champion that made it out of the conference, a Power 5 team. They heard all the noise. And boy, Miami, look, them Miami boys, they took their defense, they put it inside that bag, that duffel bag, and they carried that shit with them to Texas A&M. Them boys brought physicality. They talked tenaciousness. They got some guys. You know about Ruben Bain and Messidor on the outside, those two defensive ends that they got. Those guys are going to be first rounders. But in the back end, hard-hitting safeties, hard-hitting corners. Brooks had 2 interceptions, including the game-winning interception. And one thing I'll say is, just like in the pros, a running game and a defense travel. It don't matter where you go. Your offense may be bad one game and bad another game, or good one day and bad another day. But one thing that is constant, if you got an elite defense or a great defense, it don't matter how bad the game is going, they will always keep you in ball games. And that defense travels. Defense wins championships and defense travels. We can play out here in Marietta football or in Marietta High School, or we could go ahead and play somewhere in Miami. Defense will always travel, and they really back that up. So I was impressed by what I saw by Miami this weekend.
I know you say you're very hype on that Miami defense. I'm hype on the Miami women, but that's a different story.
hey,
but no,
you ain't never told a lie.
Do you think that obviously, so Miami, they have a strong defense? That's not a question, but I guess the question is Carson Beck. Can he get the job done? Not just win a game, but win the ultimate championship. For the NCAA.
Yeah, they say in the playoffs, a running game and a defense can carry you to wins. But who they're about to play next is a whole nother animal. They're playing the defending champion, the Ohio State University, the team that only allows 200 yards per game, the team that only allows the fewest points per game. So, and I think Miami has a good chance, but Carson Beck gonna have to throw the ball, because one thing I know about Ryan Day and Ohio State, they're gonna stop the run and they're gonna force Carson Beck to throw the ball. So to answer that question, he's gonna have to figure out a way to beat man-to-man coverage, because Ohio State is gonna play man, and he's gonna have to figure out a way to get solid protection, because up front, those big boys, they got some grown men up front that are, I don't know what they're feeding them out there in Ohio. Like, you got some grown men still in college, but he's gonna need maximum protection, and he's gonna have to beat man-to-man coverage, because they're gonna get physical, bump and run, and they're gonna get their hands on him. So that remains to be seen, because we didn't see Carson Beck have to do that against this win against Texas A&M. I can guarantee you he's going to have, at some point against Ohio State, third down, or whether it's a crucial moment in the game, he's going to have to put the ball in the air for sure.
Do you think that would you bet on him? Are you betting that Miami's got a strong, because he does have experience with Georgia, who he's won the championship with Georgia, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, do you give him that, that type of credit? Like, well, you've done it before, you could do it again.
I mean, Carson Beck, when he came out, he was one of the most talented players in the country, highly recruited out of high school. He's always had talent. When he came to Georgia, first year, he led the nation in completion percentage. That second year is when they started having problems, O-line issues, receivers dropping balls. As, Moneybag Joe says, like, real Georgia fans know that they didn't have a Carson Beck issue. It was the receivers dropping balls and all this and that. So Carson Beck has the talent to do that. Now, it's one thing to have the talent and not do it. The Miami Heat in 2011, they had the talent to say not one, not two, not three. We talking about 7, and they ended up only winning 2. You know what I mean? So talent can only take you so far. So with that being said, I do think Miami does have a shot to win this game. I do. The guys, they can get there up front. You saw Ohio State's quarterback, Julian, saying he struggled against Indiana because they rushed 4 and that 4 got home. Miami has that same kind of concept, and they have that same personnel that they can do that. The only question is what the offense going to do. We can't really bank on the defense getting turnovers, scoring. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a great Cotton Bowl, though. So definitely going to be looking forward to it.
What do you think? And obviously there's a big conversation around Ole Miss over Tulane. I think that's what most people don't want to see in playoffs is a blowout. But what can the committee offer up as a reason why Tulane made it, and do they adjust from here?
It's interesting because Nick Saban said something. I remember Joey said something last week, like, we should just pick the best 12 teams and put them in. I know they understand they want some sort of David and Goliath, like group of 5, the best group of 5 to get in, and some like small conference. I'm gonna say this: it was pretty bad watching that game. Now I got to give some credit to James Madison, because James Madison, what they did against Oregon, right? What they did against Oregon, they showed up against Oregon, although they lost by 20 something. But they not only they covered the spread, but they put up over 500 yards of total offense against Oregon. That's the most Oregon given up all year to anybody. So if they did that to a small school, I admire the effort that James Madison did. We're not in this, for, how would I say, emotional wins, but for a small school, James Madison showed up. But with that even being said, Tulane against Ole Miss, it was a great story, but this isn't college basketball, right? We don't want to see Cinderellas. We want to see the best 12 teams show up in the playoffs. And I think that if this was Ole Miss versus Texas, we would want that. If this was Oregon going on against Vanderbilt, we would take that. Or maybe if it was Oregon versus BYU or something. Let's be honest, as college football fans and pundits, we want to see the best 12 teams. We don't want to see Tulane in there, and we don't want to see James Madison. James Madison, they showed out. They impressed me a lot. But the committee got to change this. The best 12 teams is the best 12 teams that deserve to be there. Do you want to see Diego Pavia, the reigning Heisman finalist, and Arch Manning, or do you want to see Tulane and James Madison? You got it. It all boils down to that for me.
Talk to us about that. That SEC powerhouse. I think they might be going by the name of Alabama.
Yeah,
They might have had a statement this weekend. What'd you see?
they roll tide. It looked ugly. It looked ugly early. They were down 17-0 in Oklahoma, a team that already beat them at their crib. And yeah, I talked to a lot of Alabama fans next to me. They were dead in the water. I'm talking about a helicopter could have came and started trying to save them like they were drowning. And then for some reason, something happened. And I think this was the turning point in the game. I think it was 3rd down and long. And John Mateer, the quarterback for Oklahoma, he was not on the same page with his receiver. The corner goes and baits him, jumps the route, and picks 6. I thought that was the turning of that game, because after that, Alabama started rolling. Alabama looked like the real Tide that we know about. But for them to do that in that environment, and for them to show that they can come back and to be resilient in that moment, I think that's going to bode well for them going up against Indiana. Now, that's a whole nother animal you got to deal with. You talking about the reigning Heisman Trophy winner, but and for their psyche and for beating that team, I thought that was really good for them being able to do that. So that bodes well for them going into Indiana in the Rose Bowl.
Well, speaking of the Rose Bowl, we got a few bowl games coming up. The final 4 games of the season. Well, the 4 going into the last 2 and then the championship. So we'll just do some quick predictions real quick. All right, we got Oregon, number 5 Oregon versus number 4 Texas Tech. Who do you got?
I know that Oregon did not look good against James Madison, and I think this is a very bad matchup for Oregon, to be honest with you. It's going to be in Miami. Oregon is in the Pacific Northwest. They're not used to the heat. Texas, at least they're used to humidity. Everything tells you it's going to be Texas Tech. They got the defense. They've got their star linebacker, who's an All-American. He's going to be he was actually known as the Dick Butkus best linebacker in the country award. So their front is really going to get after him. But with all that being said, I'm still going to take Oregon in this game. I just think their offense is going to be able to do more. It's going to be a close game. I've got Oregon winning this 27-24 in Miami. I think they'll adjust and get there early and try to adjust with the weather. But I'll take the Ducks to go to the semifinals.
All right. Now you got number 9, Alabama versus number 1, Indiana.
You got to say that with your chest. You got to roll Alabama. You feel me?
Alabama.
This one is interesting. This one is interesting because on paper, everything screams and tells you Indiana. But it's still Alabama. It's still Alabama. And I'm going to tell you this. I think with 2 weeks to prepare, I'm going to give the edge to Indiana. I think they're going to win by a field goal. I'll say they're going to win this 28-25. But this can be an upset. I will say this because Alabama's coming in with confidence. I think to beat Oklahoma the way they did, the way that they came back is going to be great for them with their mental psyche going into that. And they're going to be playing with house money. They're not even supposed to be here. So that always spells like a trap game for the favorite. But I'm going to go with Indiana. I think their body of work or what they did in the Big Ten this year, the statement game in the Big Ten championship against Ohio State, that holds a lot of weight. And I think they're going to carry that momentum. But they better not walk in there too confident because Alabama's walking there without house money.
All right. Speaking of the house, he's not home today, but we got a big Georgia fan in the building, usually on the Inside the Red Zone and Area 90 podcast. Subscribe if you can. We got a Georgia versus Ole Miss. And like I said, you got a Georgia fan that usually is on this show. So pick wisely because we do enjoy the show.
I think this is a bad matchup for Ole Miss. Typically, what I say is when a team the team that lost against a team in a regular season that sees them again the second time, to me, always has the advantage. But without Lane Kiffin, with unproved Pete Golden, and this Ole Miss, this is not Tulane. This is the University of Georgia. We're talking about the Bulldogs. You're going up against Kirby Smart. You're going up against a team that is hungry, a team that's rounding in the form at the right time, the SEC championship. Georgia played their best brand of football in the second half of the season. Gunnar Stockton played well. The back end was looking shaky early on in the season when they played Ole Miss. Ole Miss really gave Georgia the hardest test this year when we're talking about their defense. Second time around, Kirby Smart gonna have his team right. They looked at footage. They looked at the tape of what they did wrong. This spells like it's gonna be ugly. I've got Georgia big. I've got Georgia in this 34-17. I think they're gonna make a statement down here in New Orleans.
Hey man, I'm sure you made Moneybag Joe proud.
Hey man,
but the truth is the truth. The Bulldogs are the Bulldogs. So last but not least, we got Miami. Mr. Irvin's team, and Ohio State.
Yeah. Again, all these games to me is going to be really close. Miami has a brand of football and a personality that defines them that is able to travel in any venue. They can run the football, and again, they play solid defense. But again, I'm going to go with Ohio State here because like last year, remember Ohio State, they lost to Michigan in the Big Ten championship. That fueled them to go out in the college football playoff and gave them, to renege what they did. And then obviously helped them win the championship last year when they won the college football playoff here in Atlanta, actually. So they're motivated losing again in the Big Ten championship to Indiana. And that's the wrong team to me to give momentum to. Jeremiah Smith going to show up. I think it's a bad matchup with Tate and Smith. They're receivers against the Miami corners. Although Miami corners played well against Texas A&M, this is a whole nother animal. This is arguably the best receiver since Julio Jones that they're going up against. I've got Ohio State winning this in a close game. I'm going to say it's going to be close. I'm going to say 21-17 Buckeyes.
I like it. So would you consider college football players pros? They do get paid.
Some of them. Some like Jeremiah Smith. I think him and when Adrian Peterson was in Oklahoma, those two guys to me, they could play in the NFL. At 17 years old. But there are guys that are still young that still need to develop or still don't have their grown man body yet. So I'm cool with them getting paid because of their likeness. But what I'm not cool with is thinking that they're bigger than the program. Now that's a problem. That's why Nick Saban actually himself, he actually resigned because he was like, nah, no five-star recruit is bigger than what I built here in Alabama in my program. And when you start paying these young 17, 18 years old all these millions, they're not even money savvy. They're going out to the club. Before they even get their parents some money for a house, they're blowing it on an $80,000 pendant. They're putting it on change. They're going out and vacationing. They're going out into all these clubs and stuff like that. Got to be careful. We're still talking about teenagers getting generational wealth money, So that's the thing that I don't like. But I'm all for a brother getting paid now.
Oh yeah. For sure. Again, they some of the. That's what I'm saying. They some of the youngest athletes getting paid, but let's talk about some of the oldest athletes. And by oldest, I do mean the Colts over there with young. Not even young. We can't even play with him like that. He got 10 kids. Mr. Phillip Rivers. Let's go to the NFL with the old pros, if you would. What'd you see?
Yeah, so the definition of a colt is a baby horse. He's more of like a stallion. Yeah, he way over his prime, Mr. Phillip Rivers. But hey, he looked good. He looked good coming into that game. I think when they played Seattle last week, all his passes were 7 yards and 10 yards. Everything was dink and dunk. He showed that there are moments that he can still push the ball downfield. He also showed moments that, I'm 44 years old and I can't get the ball placement where I want it to be too. But considering where the Colts are at, I mean, what is their insurance policy? Like they got no other second option. So Phillip Rivers played well last night. I just think they ran into a hot team that's running in the form right now. The 49ers, look, and I think everybody need to pay attention to this. Their next two games, if they went out, they're the number one seed in the NFC. They would have home field throughout the NFC. And guess what? The Super Bowl, where's the Super Bowl going to be at this year? In San Francisco, in Santa Clara, where they play their home games. So if all things go right and they went out and the road through the NFC has to go through in California, They could be playing 5 potential home games, including the Super Bowl themselves. So Brock Purdy's looking good. Kittle at 32 years old is still looking like a perennial tight end in the NFL. Their defense is not good, and that's what really gets me to be apprehensive about them. But yesterday they showed that they can be opportunistic when they get opportunities like that pick six. So I think 49ers are rounding in the form at the right time.
Well, speaking of coming into form at the right time, what about shout out, Georgia, all things Georgia, as far as the state, not the college. Cartersville, young man out of Cartersville, go by the name of Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah,
he put a stop into the Broncos' run. What'd you see there?
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence right now is playing like the best quarterback in the league. I ain't saying he's the best quarterback right now, but I say he's playing like, at least in the last month, you look at the numbers, they'll tell you that. They went into Denver and they did something that I ain't really think that nobody could do against a team that won 12 straight, a team that leads the league in sacks, a team that leads and only allows 22% in third down conversions. They did something, and Liam Cohen and that game plan that they had, he brought it up to a T. I love what they did in the red zone. They said, regardless if it's fourth down, we're going to go for it. We're going to be aggressive. And to me right now, they can run the football with ETN. Trevor Lawrence has some wheels on his legs, and that defense right now is second in the league in taking the ball over. That is a recipe that they can win in the playoffs. So Jacksonville is looking good. Myself right now, I think it should be Drake May. I think it should be Matthew Stafford. And you should also put Trevor Lawrence in that MVP conversation right now.
Well, speaking of Mr. Drake May, your front runner for the MVP, what'd you see out of the Patriots?
Well, I would still give it to Matthew Stafford right now as the front runner. But I think for Drake May, a guy going into the game that had never thrown over 300 yards for a football game, the time happened, right? Sometimes it's kind of like, when you riding a bike, sometimes they got to take that training wheel away. Well, I think that moment happened for Drake May. And he's been off the training wheel for a while, but New England been running the football really good the last couple weeks. So they didn't really have to ask Drake May to do stuff. Well, down 11 in the fourth quarter, that bomb. Did you see that bomb that he threw on the right side to Kyle Williams? I mean, come on, man. He's looking like probably the best deep ball thrower in the NFL right now. And then they had to come back over adversity. They had 3 guys banged up on the offensive line. Their leading tackler in the defensive tackle was out. Travion Henderson had a concussion. What he did to backpack his team in that moment, I think that bodes well for them. Because I think a lot of people were saying New England had a cupcake schedule. Who had you really beat? You never really had a lot of adversity. Down 11 against a team that was desperate, that needed to get in the playoffs. For them to win that football game and to put that team on his back and to get to victory, I think that bodes well for New England going into playoffs.
Well, speaking on that same game, on the other side of the ball, we had the Baltimore Ravens. And, a lot of people are starting to say, not just with Lamar, you could throw Patrick in there, maybe even Josh Allen. They're just saying, y'all were the original 4 horsemen of this generation, but is the window starting to close for some of these teams, mainly the Ravens, just because it's, they might have a good season, regular season, but the playoffs is a big hit. And now you got people questioning, why aren't we running the ball more? Is Lamar going to be the future? So there's just a little bit more drama around the Ravens than the other teams, at least.
Yeah, we talk about this, and I know I brought it up too. This isn't the NBA where players have player empowerment. They can go to they can ask out off a trade, and they can have, if you have a dynasty, you have like a 5 to 7 year tenure. This is the NFL. Everybody's window is closing. I remember I talked about the Detroit Lions. Buffalo, there's a lot of pressure on them this year. No Mahomes, no Allen, and no Lamar Jackson, no Burrow. So Buffalo, there's a lot of pressure on them too. But with Baltimore, I'm not going to say their window is closed. I thought they had to have been the most disappointing team this year. Super Bowl aspirations. I picked them to win the Super Bowl coming out the AFC, and Lamar wasn't right. Derrick Henry, I don't know why you don't run the football with him. Last night, I don't know if he's hurt. The defense wasn't the same that they've been in the last couple of years. I think there needs to be change, and I think it needs to be changed with the coach. John Harbaugh been there for almost 2 decades, and did you know that him and Lamar Jackson only have 3 playoff wins. 3 playoff wins. Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan have more playoff wins. Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni have more playoff wins. And that's crazy to say. So I think that marriage, there's going to have to be some sort of divorce soon. And of course, they're not going to let Lamar Jackson. You can't replace him. I think that might be the missing chess piece that they move. Because, you can't just run it back. They're going to have to make some changes and look out to see. I don't know if that John Harbaugh and that head coach is going to come back next year.
Well, speaking about coming back next year, I don't know if that Detroit Lion fans will be coming back to any NFL game, especially from taking the right hook from, DK Metcalf. It reminded me kind of that Jake Paul fight when Anthony Joshua knocked out Paul with that right hook. What'd you see in that game?
Look, and you see this in all sports and not just in football. Russell Westbrook talked about it in the NBA. I know even Roger Federer in tennis, they talk about it. Some of these other teams in different sports talk about it. This isn't hockey where you can have just a mere glass from the fans and from the players. You don't have that. You understand? So to me, I think there needs to be some sort of protocol because fans just can't be thinking that you're a fan and you're there to mess up the opponent and you're there to cheer your team on. You're not there to be messing around with players. You're not there to be telling them what you can say, what you can't say. I think sometimes, again, some of these fans be thinking that they're bigger than the program. Nah, you say something that's wrong or that is deemed foul, one of these athletes, they're going to give you an uppercut. Now, I'm not to say the behavior of what DK Metcalf did wasn't justified, but a 2-game suspension for that? I don't know about that. And I know he's going to appeal it. But I think to me, the NFL, they need to bring, whether it's, I'm not talking about have dogs near the sidelines, but they need to patrol and have some policemen there. They need to be able to put some order when it comes to having a boundary when it comes to the fans and coming to the players. You can't just be telling all this and that. Russell Westbrook said it best. Like, I'm a human at the end of the day. Like, I think for athletes, they looked upon as you got to be Superman all the time. Kyrie Irving said it best. Like, you can't just be talking to me crazy and thinking that I ain't going to do nothing. So I think there has to be some sort of fine line when you talk about the players, when you talk about the fans in some of these games. So,
all right, real quick, one of the biggest topics of the NFL is Mr. Shedeur Sanders.
Ah, Lord.
What are your thoughts on the Browns organization, real quick?
The Browns, they got a decision to make. I think it's hard to assess Shedeur personally just because of what he's dealt with. Bad offensive line. He's got some decent weapons, but no protection means no help. And so, and look at the teams that he's faced the last couple of weeks. You weren't going to beat Buffalo. You weren't going to beat the team that they played the week before. I think it's a small sample size. If I'm the Browns, I let him be my starter for next season. Give him at least a 3 to 5 game window to see how he plays. Get a solid draft pick. Get him a number 1 receiver. Go out and get him a solid tight end. Can you get him the best offensive tackle in football and coming out of college or something? He needs something to help him out. So I think that the organization for the Browns haven't done enough yet to say that if he should continue to be the starter. But if I were him, I would continue to give it a larger sample size and say that you're my starter quarterback going into the season. And that wraps it up for us on this week's episode of Inside the Red Zone, episode 16 of our great show every Friday. Stay locked in here